Rank session, which is the second time we have done this. I'll just give everyone a little bit of background on what the intention of this presentation is. So the intention is we went, obviously, with anyone who opted in, and we pulled out data out of RQ4 databases, we compared it, we looked for averages, and we tried to find some things that we can show you on where you might rank against other dealers. So the first thing that I want to talk about is quick sales. So let me remind everyone what a quick sale is. A quick sale is an invoice where you sell something to nobody. So we buy, the intention of this is someone walks in the door, they're buying an accessory, you don't care about collecting their information, so we can use a quick sale. So what we're trying not to do is do that with our cell phones. So we don't want to sell a cell phone to nobody. So let's just think about what numbers we saw last year so that we can kind of get a gauge on how have we done in the last year on quick sales. So last year at the summit, in this presentation, the total summit attendees, so just people at the summit, so again, not all RQ4 customers, you had sold 570,000 quick sales as a group, and that was worth $21 million worth of sales were attached to those quick sales. So now, of those 570,000 that you sold last year, on phones, we had 198,000 phones walk out your stores that had no customer information attached to it at all. And that was worth $11 million in sales. But the good thing is that was last year and we're over it and we're moving on. So let me ask you this. Now this year, do you think those numbers went up or do you think they went down? You guys all think they went down. So I'll tell you that they either went up 30% on quick sales overall and 42% on phones, or they went down. So you guys all think they went down. Yay, they went down. And that's a huge number, 42%, and there was 119,000 phones, so that's a pretty big deal. So I think that's really cool that you guys really put some effort into that, and those numbers went down drastically, so that is great. So let's look at this year's numbers that went down. So this year, just summit attendees, you sold 397,000 quick sales to nobody. So that was just a whole lot of customers in and out with no name and no email and no anything, but that's okay. That was worth $14 million in sales this past year. So how many of those were linked to phones? This is the important one. How many customers walked out of your stores where they bought a phone in an activation, but you didn't collect any information, which I just will remind everyone that we really want people's names so that we can reconcile them, and if we need to do chargebacks, that all matches up. But we also want to make sure that we're reaching out to those customers by email, reminding them of upgrades, taking advantage of the marketing module. But we can't call them or mail them or email them if we have nothing linked to them. So how many of those people did we have this year? 114,000. So even though that number is down, it's still a huge amount of customers that we're missing the ball on being able to reach out and bring them back. So this was worth $6 million worth of sales where we didn't collect any customer information. So now next year, when you guys all come back to the summit and we go over this again and I say, do you think those numbers went up or down? I'm going to pretty much guarantee that those numbers are going to go way, way down because everyone's going to make a note and we're all going to go back and we're all going to turn on this setting. There's this setting that says force a customer to be attached when an activation goes through the phone activation wizard, meaning it will literally be impossible to sell a phone to nobody when it goes through the phone activation wizard. So I think it's going to be amazing next year when we come back and we say, remember when we sold 119,000 phones to nobody, and then this year it was none. So I think that it's really great that you guys put in such a huge effort. The numbers are definitely going down, and next year they're going to go even more down. So keeping in mind we still had quite a few quick sales, I do want to give credit to someone who did phenomenal in this area this past year. So our first gold star of our session today is going to go to Mid-America, who has 15 AT&T locations. They did 4 quick sales the entire year. Only 4 people came in their store and bought an accessory, and they didn't collect their information. And they had not even a single phone go through their system where they didn't collect any information. Just awesome. So they just rocked at that. So I asked their CEO for a quote, and he didn't email it to me until yesterday, so I didn't have a chance to put it in here. So I just made one up for him, and I just thought that he would say, you know what, we're just simply amazing. So that's what his quote is for today. So the next thing we're going to go into is inventory shrinkage and non-sellable, and then we're going to tie the two together because they're both really, really important. So what are the reasons for inventory write-off? Why do we all write off inventory? So we've got employee theft, makes up almost half of it, followed up by shoplifting, admin error, and vendor fraud. But the big one, unfortunately, is still employee theft. So it's very sad, but it is unfortunately true that in the retail industry last year, employee theft was worth $120 billion. So in the same survey, we found out that employee theft is actually responsible for 1 out of every 3 businesses that went out of business in the last year in the USA. And the other unfortunate thing that we all just need to be aware of is that 66% of employees will steal if they see others doing it with no consequences. So in fact, what unfortunately is true, it will take $20 in sales to recover a single dollar that gets stolen from you. So for every $1 that an employee steals, it will take you $20 in sales to recover the product, the overhead, the HR, everything that went into that $1 that was stolen. So it will take a lot to recover that. So back to last year. Last year when we did this session and we looked at what everyone was writing off, people were writing off on average $1,000 per location every single month. So I'll ask you guys again, do you guys think that number went up or do you think it went down from last year? Down? We all think it went down? Hopefully we are right. So how much are we writing off now? On average now, you guys are writing off $750 per location every single month. So that's down 25%, so that's pretty awesome. However, $750 per month per store is still a lot of money walking out the door. So we broke down the numbers a little bit. So customers who are counting their inventory still less than once a month, because a lot of people still only count their inventory once a month or sometimes less than once a month, you're still writing off $1,000 a month. People who count their inventory 1 to 3 times a month, so they're doing it, once every couple weeks, 1st and 15th, whatever that might be, 1 to 3 times a month, your number goes almost in half and you're down to $580 per month. Those of you who are counting 1 to 3 times a week, so that's more common that people do a full phone inventory count every Friday or whatever that might be. Some people will do it 3 times a week. Your number goes down even more. You get down to 361. And those of you who count your inventory every single day, the number goes even lower, down to 337. So again, keep in mind, we'll give you all of these slides after the fact. If you guys want them, they'll be on our website. But it just proves that those of you that are counting all of the time are writing off significantly less than people who aren't. So again, we want to report on why are you writing off $1,000 a month. So even if you're only writing off $100 a month, it's so critical that you report on why. You have to pay attention when you're doing your quantity adjustments and put effort and say, I'm writing this off for this reason, and then you get a report like this that says, here's how much you wrote off for theft, and here's how much you wrote off because of purchase order errors, and so on and so forth. So put effort into the quantity adjustment reason code so that you guys can get a great report out of our Q4. So I want to jump into non-sellable quickly while we're talking about inventory. So I just want to go really fast, and I want to tell you what non-sellable is. How non-sellable works is the customer comes in and they want to refund this phone. And then the employee has two options. Do you want to put this into sellable inventory, or do you want to put this into non-sellable inventory? So we basically get two buckets. So they get to decide which bucket, basically, of inventory this phone goes into. So I can either say it goes into these buckets, or I can say it goes into my non-sellable buckets. It's pretty straightforward. But what the good thing about having this feature turned on is that for those of you who are using non-sellable, you have these 4 phones in non-sellable. So when you go to order more product, either auto ordering or by hand, how many in this example, how many phones do you have in your store that you can sell? Only 2 of them. We don't have 6 in stock. If you're not using this module, the system thinks you have 6 in stock. So if you need to do any ordering, you're not going to order any for this store because they have 6, but realistically, they only have 2. So there's huge benefits to having non-sellable turned on. So if you don't use non-sellable, so if we don't use non-sellable, then let's go over the exact same scenario of our 6 phones. This comes in on a refund, and I get my option of sellable, and that's it. So this one goes in sellable, this one goes in sellable, all of them go in sellable. So you're going to do your inventory reordering, and you think you have 6 in stock, but again, you don't, you have 2. So that's the big difference. And it's really awesome, and that's why I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. 60% of you attending the summit are using non-sellable. So more than half of you have that pop-up of sellable or not sellable. And that's really good. So how can we tie back non-sellable to reducing how much inventory we're writing off? We have a setting that says, now, those non-sellable products, those 4 phones that we don't have in our sellable and we're keeping them in our separate bucket, we want to make sure we're counting them because they are physically in your store still. And how often do you ship back to the vendor or head office or whatever? Once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is, they still have a lot of value, those phones. You're still going to get credit on those phones. If you physically have them in your store, you should absolutely be counting them. So I want to break down how this room is doing these 2 things, sellable and non-sellable. So here's my really confusing graph for everyone to look at. So this 40% over here is sadly the 40% of you who do not use non-sellable. So most of what you can take away from this is you should use non-sellable because it's going to help your inventory and it's going to be great and it's going to be clean. So this is good because this is the 60% of you that are using it. So let's break that number down a bit. So for more than half of you in the room, you fall into the 60% of people who are using non-sellable. Now of that group of people, 85% of you are not counting those phones. Only a small little grouping of people here are using that module and then counting that inventory. Why is it so important that we count that non-sellable inventory? I want to go back to this scenario. So we're using non-sellable. Our inventory ordering is accurate because we are ordering off of what's in stock and sellable. What's happening to these 4 non-sellable phones over here? We're not counting them. So how do you know how many you're supposed to have? You don't. What is stopping me as an employee, and I absolutely don't mean to be negative here, but this has happened to multiple people that I have talked to, is an employee can take an invoice and they'll sell a phone and then they'll refund it and they'll put it into this non-sellable category. And you'll never know because it was an in or it was an out and then it was an in. So your inventory still looks the same as far as value goes. Your cash just netted out to 0. Your sale just netted out to 0. So there's absolutely nothing report-wise that's going to say, hey, that's a problem. But now I just put it into a bucket, and you're not asking me to count it, so I can take a new phone, put it into that bucket, and you'll never know because you're not counting it. So the point of my story is that you must count your non-sellable inventory. It's a big hole for stealing. It's a fantastic tool, but you must count it. But I'm going to change it around. I'm going to talk about someone who does inventory amazing. They're counting. They're barely writing anything off. So my gold star this year for inventory write-off goes to Select Communications, who has 46 Verizon locations across multiple markets. They only write off $152 a month, which, remember, the average is still $750. They count all the time. So I talked to their CFO, Bob. They've got a very great policy in place where they're counting all the time, they're reviewing the counts, they're making decisions fast, they're making the write-offs fast, they're holding people accountable, so they have a very good grasp on inventory control and inventory write-off. So these numbers are absolutely achievable. Next thing I want to jump into is inventory compatibility. So this is something been there, forever. And inventory compatibility, just so in case anyone doesn't know, is where you say, hey, this phone works with this accessory. And then the phone activation wizard will pop up and it will say, you sold this phone, you should sell this accessory or this feature. So I saw this picture and I thought, that reminds me of compatibility. So why does this picture of some smiley faces and some non-smiley faces remind me of compatibility? It reminds me of it because the smiley face to me is the 13% of our customers who use that feature, and all the sad faces are the people who don't use that feature. So this is an amazing feature. So I just want to go through the benefits of using this feature with you guys. So what's cool about using this feature, or I guess before we jump into that, I'll give you a couple quick numbers. All RQ4 customers, so not just Summit attendees, all RQ4 customers, the average gross profit per accessory is $11.41. And as I talk to people, I realize, that that's a number that a lot of you guys have. What's really cool is that Summit attendees, so just the companies attending the Summit this year, your average actually jumps up to $14.59. So that's a pretty significant jump. So for our clients, of the clients who are using compatibility, the ones that have 25% of their phones set up with compatible products, and by compatible products, I mean accessories and features, their gross profit per accessory is $2.91 higher than people who don't have any compatibility set up. For those of our customers who are using compatibility on more than 85% of their phones, their gross profit per accessory is $5 higher. And I wonder why that is, but it's probably because every time an employee goes through a sale, it's right in front of their face that says, did you want to sell any of these accessories, or did you want to sell any of those features to the customer? So who here in the room knows who Michael Vick is? Hopefully everybody. Do you guys think that Michael Vick is worth $16 million? No. Does anyone think he is? Okay. We got a couple. So Michael Vick's last contract was worth $16 million. So how much would we have to, and we, meaning Summit attendees, how much would we have to increase our gross profit per invoice if just the people in this room wanted to all pool our money together and hire Michael Vick for the next season or contract? I don't know football, however that works. So if we wanted to hire Michael Vick, how much gross profit would we need to increase our accessories by? It was that small number of only $2.91. If everyone in this room would have increased our gross profit by $2.91, it would have been $16 million in gross profit, not even sales. So how did I come up with that number? It's a big deal because just Summit attendees sold 7.6 million accessories this year so far. So if we took those 7.6 million accessories and we all increased it by $2.19, that would work out to $16.7 million in extra gross profit. And that's a really small number. So if we want to go a little bit more extreme and say, if we would have increased our gross profit by $5 per accessory each, it would have been an extra $38 million, and we could have just purchased Jennifer Aniston's $38 million LA mansion, and we could all be in LA at her house for the summit where it probably isn't raining and we could have our little pool party. But instead, we discounted, so that's okay. Maybe next year you guys can buy it, maybe. So how that worked out is, again, if we would have sold 7.6 million accessories, increased by $5, we would have got our 38.3 million bucks. So again, if you're not using compatibility, you're missing out on this screen. This is the screen that will pop up any single time you go through the phone activation wizard. And I want to point out this new feature that is actually a search bar on the compatibility. So you just think, oh, it's a search bar, who really cares? But what this allows you to do is you could take all of your accessories and put them on here, or 20, 25 accessories and make them compatible here. A lot of people think that this screen is intended to be 3 or 4 different accessories, which is great, but because now you can scan on this screen, it's a lot easier for the employee. If we had all of our accessories there, I could just scan on my accessory, it would go onto the invoice, and it would be very easy. The other great thing about compatibility is that the setup is extremely easy. This is going to be a one-time setup for you. If you set up every phone with the compatibility, and then again you create similar off of an existing phone, it will just naturally maintain itself. So it can't be an excuse of it's too much to maintain or it's hard to set up. It's actually very easy to set up and very easy to maintain. One small thing as far as compatibility goes, or just accessory gross profit, because I think that's something that we could all monitor a little bit more. And if our goal is just to increase it by, again, $2.91 or $5, how much of a difference it will make on the bottom line, is the product summary report will actually tell you your average sales price per accessory that exists. And that's one report where we actually break down the averages. So it's a cool report to check out, and we also break it down with a percentage of profit. So I have to give out a gold star on this topic because, again, people who use compatibility have higher gross profit. Our gold star for this topic is going to go to the Phone Zone, who has 6 Sprint locations. Their average gross profit per accessory is $19. So much higher than the $11 average or even the $14 Summit attendee average. So they've got a very, very high gross profit per accessory number, and that's, I think one thing that they can attribute to that is that 92% of their phones have their accessories set up on them. So Jill is the owner of Phone Zone. She truly believes that the reason that they've done so well with their gross profit per accessory is they offer 4 to the floor, which means anytime they sell a phone, they bring out a charger, a case, a battery, and a headset. They do contests, they incent their employees around it, and it's worked out very well for them because they've been able to achieve such a high gross profit per accessory. So cash management is the next topic we're going to jump into. So as a group, just Summit attendees this year so far have put through $261 million of cash through RQ4. Now that's going to be a combination of bill payments as well as sales, so that's not necessarily just sales, but the point is we've got a lot of money rolling through your stores, regardless of how it's made up. So there is a screen, new cash outs, and there's a security rule, and it is it a full cash out or a blind cash out? So what a blind cash out is it means that any time an employee goes through the cash out screen, they do not know how much cash they're supposed to have. So you're hiding it from them. So you're making them actually count the cash and type in how much they have. If it's full, they're just going to type in, maybe they're going to type in what they actually have, but they have the potential to just look at how much they're supposed to have, and they're just going to type that in. So, of the people attending the summit, 85% of you do not use blind cash outs. Only 15% of you are masking how much cash someone is supposed to have, and the other 85% are allowing your employees to see how much cash they're supposed to have. So should you use blind cash outs? I absolutely think you should. So clients who use blind cash out, if after discrepancies and their reconciliation, how much lower are their cash out errors than people who allow all employees to see how much cash they're supposed to have, and then you have to go back and you have to fix all of the mistakes because they're just typing it in and then they're depositing something different. So people who use blind cash outs, the 15% of you, actually have 55% less errors than people who are making it a free-for-all where they can view everything. So definitely something worth checking out. So my last topic of the day is just overall gross profit. So the reason I want to talk about overall gross profit is because a lot of what we're going to learn about in the next couple days are small things that we can do, like make our compatibility and count our inventory, all those small things that add up and really change our bottom line. So this year, Summit attendees, you as a group, your total overall gross profit so far has been $838 million. So that's a huge number. That's very exciting, it's great. And on average, how that works out is that in the US, American companies, you guys have an average of $190,000 gross profit per location per year. In Canada, the number is $298,000 per location per year. So this year, I'm going to give my last gold star for today. And this, to me, is going to be the biggest, best, most insane gold star of the whole session so far. And I'm going to give it to Cellular & More, who has 5 locations, Verizon locations in the Michigan area. Keep in mind, when I reveal his number, that the average in the US is $190,000 gross profit. Now, I'll tell you before I show his number, these guys only do straight retail. There's no outside sales, just straight retail. His average gross profit per location is $642,000. So when I asked him, how is it possible that you've achieved the volume or the gross profit of someone with 25 to 30 stores out of 5 stores, he just really thinks that it's based on defining a structure that really holds staff accountable to keep their or meet their KPIs, incenting them right, sharing gross profit, sharing your numbers, empowering your staff. So he's really taken all of those little things and put them together, and it's really absolutely paid off for him. So basically what I'm saying is you can find this guy out there tonight. This is Dean from Cellular & More, and we all want to be him because he's got 5 times the average gross profit per location. So before we jump into any questions, I just want to remind everyone that all of these things we're talking about, they're really small. All of these things aren't dependent on 4.4 or any version. You could go home today, you could start counting your inventory more, you could use blind cash outs, we could set up compatibility on all of our products, and we could capture more customer information and stop doing quick sales. And if we did all of that, I think that when we look at these numbers next year, your gross profit per location and per accessory and your quick sale rate, everything is going to continue to just get better and better and better. So all these small things added together will just, can drastically, change the bottom line for your business, which is really cool. So with that being said, I won't ramble on anymore. We will jump into questions. If anyone has a question, you can just raise your hand and we will bring you the mic. So we have one over there.
Yeah, Stacy, the inventory that you're talking about, and the more often you do, has always been a challenge for us. Were we focusing mainly on phones and accessories, or just phones?
Typically, people who count their inventory every day only count their phones every day, and then their accessories once a month. That's the most common. And so the quick thing about that is that depending on how the stores are set up, is that it's really easy to just scan your phones really quickly. And if you use wireless scanners, you can, or your stores are set up where you have a back room and maybe it's not a kiosk, you can just go scan them in the back. So phones every day, accessories once a month. Anybody else back there, and then we'll for Shrinkage.
Sorry to be a mic hog here, but the counts you're doing, are you having somebody approve them? Because in the system it allows you to post it and then have a committed and non-committed, have somebody in the back office actually update that, or the managers in the stores updating those?
That's for purchase orders where you post and pay them, but typically so posting and paying is for reconciling receiving invoices, which is purchase orders. For count sheets specifically, it's never the store that counts the inventory, reconciles the inventory. Typically, it's an inventory manager who oversees all of that. And a couple enhancements to the count sheet screen is if you had 10 stores and they all counted their inventory every day, you could run just the, the committed count screen. It's not a report, but just the screen that pulls up all the count sheets. There's new columns in there that will say, here's how many products were missing and the value of those products. So you can bulk complete them or bulk recount them, whatever that might be. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good.
Hi. When you're calculating a gross profit, are you taking into consideration the subsidy?
Absolutely. Yes.
I'd like to meet that gentleman who got the gold star.
We can meet him. So, yeah, gross profit in all of these examples, just so everyone knows, would be selling price minus cost and any subsidies. So regular gross profit out of RQ4, which always includes any commissions or subsidies from vendors or carriers. Yep.
Is there any way to set up favorites as far as favorite reports globally?
No. So did you guys all hear the question? Can we set up favorite reports or custom reports globally? Not yet. Definitely on the radar and in the development queue, but not done yet. No. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much.